Alrighty, welcome back to the next and what is the final AU Core Technical Design group before we graduate and become a work group. Um, so we're going to go through a number of things today. A quick reminder on Zoom, it'd be great if it was your name with your organization afterwards, which helps us for the records for the meeting minutes. If you want to ask a question at any time, you can. We're not holding things to the end, so you can pop things in the chat, you can put your hand up in Zoom reactions. Um, if it's something that you actually think it's worth us really discussing as a group, it'd be really good if you put your hand up and didn't just put it in the chat. As chair, I'll try to pay attention to the chat, but I won't always be able to see it in time to bring your thoughts in. Um, I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country and that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we all gather today, which for me are the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples, and that we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and we acknowledge the First Peoples as the first scientists, educators, and healers. Um, just a quick situation, really, on where we are in terms of AU Core because these AU Core TDG main calls do not just the administrative business, but we also bring through the AU Core Fire IG project change requests and work in this particular meeting series. So this is where we're up to now. We've already kicked off AU Core R3. And today we're going to go through what does it mean to be a work group and kicking off the ways of working. So it's going to be pretty governance heavy, but there's also a change request here that we want to vote on. And there has been some work already on AU Core R3, which if we have time, we'll get back to around composition and around address. Our next thing after this is an endpoint information session which is where the agency is looking to progress an AU Core endpoint profile, in particular to support some of the HCA provider directory um, priorities. So that's going to be coming up pretty fast for us to look at the proposal. But first activity will be the information session where if you like endpoint, I mean, I hear those words, I have no idea what it is and how it works, or I've heard about it, but we don't implement it yet. This is the right session for you. If you can't make it, there'll be a recording. But it's really going to be an open and informal session where we can talk about all things endpoint and do we even want one and why would we? Um, and then we'll continue on work in AU Core R3 scoping stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a confirmation of the agenda and then do a quick call out if there are any other topics. So we'll go through our usual business and updates, things like approval of minutes, updates news. Then the next topic is intended to be talking about the work group now that we're going to be a work group. Do a bit of a report back from the AU Core track at the recent HL7 AU Connectathon and some of the testing updates. Go into a look at the fire maturity model level of healthcare service, which is an update that's come out of the recent Connectathon, where it looks like we can increase that maturity level, and then talk about the next meeting agenda. There are things we can fit in there if we have more time, but I think that's plenty. That being said, is there another topic that people would like to add on to the agenda today? All right, I'm not hearing any. So let's just go forward with this. If at some point you want to either put something on today's agenda or the next meeting agenda, you can put your hand up or put something in the chat and we'll see if we can fit that in. So let's go to usual business. Um, and usually there are three sets of meeting minutes that we don't have approved. The 26th of February was the all-day workshop that was the second day of the Spark face-to-face, which was the encounter discovery. That's been sent out for quite a while. There's some feedback and changes have come in, but everything has been incorporated, so that's available. I'll go through it in a sec. And that says, oh, that'll be me copy and paste doing something bad. That's two saying 10th of the 3rd. What they really should be is there was an online call on the 5th of March, and then there's a face-to-face, which is essentially, last week. That's deferred because I only sent out the meeting minutes, I think, last night on that. So I'll look to have us approve the minutes from the all-day workshop on the 26th of February, and then also from what is actually the 5th of March online call. So I'll just go through the first one now. Um, so this is our Encounter Record Discovery workshop that happened in Hobart. Hopefully that's big enough for people. Um, we have on the minutes, we've got the agenda there, we've got the list of attendees, which was a good set of attendees. We've got the slide pack here. Because it was face-to-face only, there isn't a recording in a chat. Um, so we have a set of worksheets and the completed ones here, and we also have an incredibly detailed set of minutes. Thanks very much, Shelley, for providing those that are and with the Menti kind of outputs from the day that are forming the records of that meeting. So I'm just going to do a quick scroll down so people can see we have all of these items here. Um, and while I'm doing that, does anyone need more time to review these minutes before we look to approve them? All right, I'm not seeing anyone's hand up. I'm not hearing anyone. So who would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the face-to-face meeting on the 26th of February?
I'd like to make that motion. Shelley did an awesome job with those minutes. They're amazing.
Yeah, they're really good. Thanks, Michael. Who would like to second that motion?
I'll second that. Daniel, the Shogun.
Thanks, Chauvin. So we have a second. Any other comments or questions while I find the online poll? All right, I'm about to click on that. So what you should see in front of you is online poll for approval of the minutes. Please vote affirmative, negative, or abstain. Um, if you can see the poll but can't vote, could you put it in the chat? A +1 for affirmative, negative, or abstain. And if you've dialed in, so you can't actually see either, if you could say your name and then affirmative, negative, or abstain. All right, so 80% of people have voted. Just give it a little bit more. All right, I'm going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end that poll and share the results, and I'll now just check the chat. Um, I'll now just check the chat. Why am I only seeing an AI thing?
Look at the everyone chat rather than the chat that's up the top of the chat window. There's a thing to choose which chat you're looking at.
Yeah, I've clicked everyone, but the only thing I'm seeing is one AI in it, and therefore it's weird. Okay, can someone tell me if you voted in the chat?
Yeah, I
There's
can't
there's
see anything
no
in the chat either.
there's no votes in the chat.
Okay, excellent. Oh, thanks, Richard. I can see your vote now. Well, not your vote, but your chat. Yeah. All right, cool. In that case, so with the results of the electronic poll, nothing's in the chat. What we have are 11 affirmative, we've got 0 negative, we've got 9 abstain. The motion carries. We've approved the minutes from the 26th of February. So what I'm going to do now is we'll go to the next set, which is not the 10th. The next set is the online call from the 5th. And I should have teed that up better, but close enough. Let's just go to here. Oh, alrighty. So this was our online call before the face-to-face last week. These have also been sent around, feedback's been incorporated. So what we discussed on this day was it was really all about no known meds. And we both revisited and made an agreement on how to deal with no known medications that fed into the face-to-face meeting on the 10th of March. That was basically what we got up to. So I'll just run through this. We've got our attendees, we've got our recording, we've got our transcript chat log slides. We've got the sort of the detailed discussion. We've also got the decisions we made at the end here on what we're actually going to agree to do in AU Core and patient summary around the support for the use case of recording no known medications, or as Michael Worley would prefer, known no medications. So that's all in there. Does anybody need more time to review these minutes before we look to approve them? All right, not seeing any hands up. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So who would be happy to motion approval of the minutes from the 5th of March?
Happy to motion approval of the minutes, Ricardo.
Thanks, Ricardo. Who's happy to second?
I'm happy to second, Doshi.
Okay, thanks, Dushi. I'll now do another poll for approval of those minutes. Okay, so you should see that poll now in front of you for approval of minutes. This is for the 5th of March. So please vote affirmative, negative, abstain. Pop it in the chat if you can't vote, and say your name and affirmative, negative, or abstain if you don't have access to either. All right, and I'm seeing something in the chat, and that's great. That's a vote there. I'm going to count this down now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to end that poll. What we have, including what is in the chat, we have 12 affirmative, 0 negative, 10 abstain. The motion carries. These minutes are passed. Alrighty, that is the minutes business. So let me get back to where we were on our slides. Okay, so we're going to defer the ones that are actually from the face-to-face last week because I only sent them out last night. We'll look to approve those in the next meeting, which will be of the work group. There are no new actions. I need to follow up with a couple of people offline around that are related to the work group, but there's nothing to report in this call. In terms of updates and news, I'm going to do a small summary of updates here, but we've got some topics around like the work group ways of working. So we'll actually do some of the updates in the sections that are the agenda items. So the first one, there's been a request from HL7 Australia who had received feedback that we'd been allowing a number of chatbots in our Zoom meetings because people can't always make the meeting and they prefer to send their AI meeting summary note taker like Otter AI to the meeting. But there's been a couple that have been spamming the mailing list, which go out to like 400 to 700 people post a meeting. And so the request is from HL7 AU to no longer allow those because it's been misused. So at this point in time, the people chairing the HL7 AU meetings will no longer allow the AI meeting summary to be a participant in the meeting. The next one is we put up the PSS for AU Core R3. That got approved by the firework group and is now with the board for approval. So we're just waiting for the official email. I know there was a board meeting last night to let us know whether or not they're happy with AU Core R3 to proceed. And patient summary ballot voting. That closes tomorrow. If you've signed up to vote, you have until tomorrow, well, end of tomorrow to vote. So please make sure you get onto that. Please try early, because for a number of accounts every year, there's always the chance that something might not be hooked up correctly with your account. And if you leave it to the last minute, we won't have enough time to fix it because that's our HL7 International. So Brett and I would have to reach out to HL7 International to make sure that we get your account right. So if you could get onto that, that would be great. Even if you just vote abstain and then change it later once you've had enough time. All the other updates, I think, are incorporated in the rest of the slides around what's happening with work groups, around report back from Connectathon. But is there anything else that people would like to do an announcement or an update of before we move on? Mandy, go for it.
I don't seem to have the link for the vote. Could you share that, please?
Is that for the patient summary ballot?
Yes, thank you.
Brett, could you reach out to Mandy and liaise with her on that?
Yep, sure can.
All right, excellent. All right, final one from me before we move on to the rest of the agenda is last call on the diagnostic report update. This has been up for a while, where our friends, and I see Andrew Aubrey, you're online, fantastic, are putting together a proposal for diagnostic report to bring in, and they are looking to do that with the information on what people have already implemented and made available so that we can form what is a, core of the core, a minimum kind of representation of what is actually appropriate in terms of diagnostic reporting. This page is here. Please go ahead and complete that. It's a last call. We won't be doing this later on. We're going to close this up pretty quickly. So we've got a few, but we're looking for the last other people, and I might nag some people offline who I know do this to make sure they add into it so that we can have what is actually targeted towards what is really the Australian needs into that. Yeah. Andrew, is there anything you wanted to say on this one?
Not specifically, definitely just encourage people to get this filled out. The more information we can fold in from what people are currently doing and currently support, the more informed the profile will be.
Mhm.
Thanks. If there, as always, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Andrew. Alrighty. So, update on this. Identifier type got its final proposal really formed at the last breakout. We won't go into a detail on it here. It was a pretty fantastic session that had a whole number of vendors and international even at that meeting on identifier type. And Richard Townley O'Neill from the agency ran a fantastic breakout. And so we've got a proposal now that will start to come through. If you have any interest or currently implement identifiers for organisations in fire in Australia, you're going to want to keep an eye out for this. There's a whole bunch of significant normative changes that are going to start to come through to be voted on. It won't be in the AU Core group. It's the fire work group that'll make those changes. But in AU Core, we're going to inherit them. So this, I think, is actually a breaking change for AU Core R3. We're going to have to do a major version uprev because of what I see coming. So that's just keep an eye out for that. In terms of endpoint, actually, Ricardo, do you want to give a little bit of an update on endpoint and where that's at? Let me just go down to the... Let me just go down to where it is. Yeah. Okay. Ricardo, if you're speaking,
Yep,
you're on mute.
I can go now. Sorry, I was just waiting for you to get this up on the screen. So first things first, so the poll, I've completed the poll now, and we received quite a bit of feedback that we'll be taking into account in our proposal. I think the main thing right now with this is just ensuring that whoever's given us some information through this poll, that they will be available in the upcoming sessions where we'll get to eventually present our proposal for endpoint, as Danielle has indicated previously. So there's going to be an information session tomorrow Richard has been leading this work within the team, but Richard's not available tomorrow, so we'll have someone else, Stuart Hansen, taking us through the content at this session. So after that, what we're currently looking at is, let me just double check, is to look at bringing a draft proposal to the to the meeting on the 2nd of April. That's what we kind of looking at. Yep. And then all going well, we'll put it to a final vote on the following meeting, which I think is on the 16th of April. So that's what we're aiming for at this stage, unless something kind of unexpected comes up. That's what we'll be trying to achieve. So we also had a bit of held a session on this at the work group day last week. One of the things that as we tried to get across at that session was that the proposal initially is probably going to be a very bare bones proposal. So we're not going to try to solve or we'll try to address all the use cases that can be kind of solved through the utilization of endpoints. So the initial focus for us is to expand what we're currently doing with endpoints, which has been more secure messaging based to accommodate fire endpoints. But noting there's a lot more than that, of course. But right now, with our first proposal, we're really just going to try to take this first step towards defining connection types. I think connection types might be something else of fire, and then build from there. So I think it's just an expectation setting that we want to do with the community moving forward. But yeah, all going well, we should have a final vote on this on the 16th of April.
Thanks, Ricardo. Does anyone have any particular questions that they'd like to ask Ricardo on that?
So there's one from David on the chat. So yeah, we'll record the information session tomorrow. It will be available to people to watch if they can't attend the meeting, and yeah, and I guess subsequent discussions will also be recorded, so you'll be able to see what's being done.
Yep. If you can attend and you've got any questions about endpoint, come along to that, and we can go through it together. Thanks, Ricardo. All right, let me close down that and go to the no, I think that's where we are. There was a question really around composition and clinical documents, and if anyone is implementing section.section, that's been open for a while now and is now closed, so we can just move on. So let's go on to this one. I'm going to hand over here to Michael Wilson, who is an incoming co-chair for AU Core, to start taking through what is this AU Core work group and what's happening. Would you like to share your screen, Michael?
Yes, I'll share mine.
All right, let me stop.
Okay. Hopefully you can see mine.
Yes.
Okay, so as Danielle suggested, we are graduating from a technical design group to a fully fledged HL7 Australia work group. So what does that mean? So you'll see here that HL7 Australia has set up a number of new work groups. Before we had the fire work group, and the AU Core Technical Design Group was a subgroup of that fire work group. So now the work groups have been expanded, and we get our own work group as the AU Core work group. There's been some other work groups created as well with the AU e-requesting work group and the terminology work group. So we had, under the technical design group, we had two projects. We had our AU Core Fire IG project and our AU Patient Summary Fire IG project. So those projects are continuing as usual. They stay as projects as they were. They just now have a new home in our AU Core workgroup. You'll also notice that they are Sparked projects. So they are supported by the Sparked Fire Accelerator. And not all projects do have to be sponsored by Sparked. They can be community-run projects outside of Sparked, but they will still be under a work group somewhere. So we've got our AU Core with our 2 projects sitting there. HL7 Australia has run a set of elections for the co-chairs for this new work group, the AU Core work group, and those elections have been finalised. They did send out an email earlier this week with the results of those elections, and these are your new work group co-chairs. You'll notice certainly some familiar faces that are staying on, were previously AU Core TDG co-chairs, and are now continuing as AU Core workgroup co-chairs. And there's a few new faces here, including myself, and Chauvin Roy and Steve Swinsberg, who are joining the co-chairs. Also want to thank our outgoing TDG co-chairs. So we had Marvin and Michael Draheim and Danielle, who will no longer be co-chairs. So we're thanking them very much for their effort to getting us all the work for getting through release 1 and 2 of AU Core and getting patient summary to ballot. It's been an amazing effort. And don't worry, Danielle's not going anywhere. She's still going to be here as a project lead, looking after the AU Core projects. Which she's just passing the baton for us to stand on our own as co-chairs. So as before, you can reach out to any of us as co-chairs and we'll help you through this journey with AU Core. I did mention about our projects. So this is where we have currently 2 projects within the work group. These are the existing projects. We already had project scope statements in for these that had been approved. They are continuing as is. They just now live in the AU Core work group rather than the TDG as a subgroup of the fire work group. So nothing has changed for these. The projects are as is. You'll notice there that they are Sparked badged because they are supported through the Fire Accelerator. Another thing that's being introduced in the new HL7 Australia governance structure is the Technical Steering Committee. So that sits below the HL7 Australia board, and it has responsibilities for things like setting up new work groups, approving mission and charters for work groups, approving those project proposals, project scope statements, notice of intent to ballot, decision-making practices, and interim co-chair appointments. So a lot of those responsibilities before were part of the fire work group. So they're being moved up to the Technical Steering Committee. And we still have a relationship with the fire work group. So for things like our Australian Fire Maturity Model Assessments, AU variants, and quality assurance reviews will still go to the fire work group. So depending on what we're looking to get endorsed, whether they go to the fire work group or the Technical Steering Committee. The Technical Steering Committee is still to be stood up. So as interim arrangements, anything, if we need things approved prior to the Technical Steering Committee being stood up, we will put them through existing arrangements, which is through the fire work group. So we don't have to wait. Anything that we need endorsed can go through the fire work group as an interim until the Technical Steering Committee is stood up. And that Technical Steering Committee has representatives from the community as well as from work groups. So each work group will have one representative on that steering committee and be able to provide information from their work group and feed it back to their work group from that committee. And I've been nominated as the representative for AU Core, so I'll be looking after that. Any questions on the structures and the like before I move on to some of the more detail? Happy to answer any if they've got them now, but otherwise I can move on. No. Keep going. So now with the establishment of a work group, our AU Core work group, we need a mission and charter. Before we had a terms of reference, but we will be transitioning that to a mission and charter. So that's a requirement of the Technical Steering Committee to establish and maintain the work group. We do have an interim one that they have stood up for us, but we've got the opportunity now to amend that and make it what we need for our work group. So as part of that, there's the mission. The mission is the reason the work group was formed and the high-level objectives guiding its focus. And then we have our charter, which is specific artifacts the work group will create and their contributions to HL7 strategic initiatives, our formal relationship with HL7 Australia groups, our formal relationships with groups outside of HL7 Australia. And the purpose of this is so we prevent scope creep and any overlap with other groups. So we have put together a draft that the AU Core work group will go through and review and look to approve in a later meeting. But I do want to socialize that for now, and I'll put it in the chat. Follow along. I'll make it a bit bigger. Okay, so we had a terms of reference for the AU Core Technical Design Group. This is heavily based on that original terms of reference. So most of it is very similar. The mission here that we are to precisely articulate the requirements and specifications necessary to promote seamless interoperability among clinical and non-clinical systems within Australian context. I won't read the rest of it for you, but that was very much the wording we had for the TDG. So it's really just putting it in the context of our work group now. We have our charter, which again is very similar to what we had before with the work products and contributions to HL7 AU processes. So we're developing HL7 Australia fire standards and we participate actively in Australian fire community. So we're looking at all of these responsibilities, and the two at the bottom here are the projects that we have at the moment to develop and maintain AU Core Fire Implementation Guide and maintain the AU Patient Summary Fire Implementation Guide. Then looking at formal relationships with HL7 AU groups or accelerators, we've got some content here that the work group has projects that are part of the Sparked Australian Fire Accelerator. So as you all know, we've been supporting these projects through Sparked. So that's just putting that in our charter to note that we have a formal relationship with Sparked for these projects. And then we also have relationships with other groups outside of HL7 Australia, which is we've got relationships with the Sparked Clinical Design Group and the Australian Clinical Data for Interoperability. So we have projects that are responsible for the technical specifications that implement the exchange of AU CDI elements. And also noting in here as well that there is a harmonization group that has been set up that provides that cross-domain escalation and alignment pathway between the Spark Clinical Design Group, AU CDI, and HL7 AU work group projects within the Sparked Fire Accelerator. So that's just noting this is a draft. I would encourage you to have a read of this and provide any feedback on this page. So the link's in the chat. We'll also send it out when we send out the minutes requesting feedback on this. But please, if you'd like any amendments to this, have any suggestions, please comment on this page. We will look to review and vote on this in a future meeting to accept as our mission and charter for the new work group. Once we do that, we will then submit that to the Technical Steering Committee or the Fire Work Group, depending on whether it's established or not, to get that endorsed. Any questions on that before I move on?
I think I'll just make a quick comment as with my fire work group co-chair hat on. We discussed it and we thought that given the imminency of the technical steering committee looking to start meeting from the 1st of April that we would recommend that the mission and charter starts to come through the technical steering committee. Well, I mean, we have the powers, I guess, in the firework group under BAU, but we think it's the best idea to bring it through the TSC.
Yeah, that makes sense. Noting that Danielle is a co-chair of the firework group, so she could talk authoritatively about that.
I am still, yes.
Okay, thanks, Danielle. Moving on to the mission and charter, the decision-making practices, these have not changed from what we were using for the technical design group. We've already done it in this meeting today, about formalizing a motion, looking for a second, and then having a majority vote. All of these decision-making practices are outlined in the HL7 decision-making practices. There is a link there, which I'll probably, rather than show that, I'll just copy the link, put it in the chat so you can read it yourself. Maybe I can't. Maybe someone else can copy that if they can find it. But that has all the things in about a quorum requirements and the like for whether we need a co-chair, president of a meeting, at least 2 other representatives from different organisations and the like. But the short answer is here that this hasn't changed. This is exactly what we've already been doing in the AU Core TDG. That's going to continue in the AU Core work group. If we do at any point decide that we do want changes to this, we can request those through the technical steering committee as well.
I mean, I don't think we need to practice because we've already done it. We approved 2 minutes. It's exactly the same as how we just approved the minutes. Exactly the same process. But I mean, if we wanted to, we could do a special practice
No,
motion.
there was a very good
2
practice
minutes.
done at the Hobart.
Okay.
There's a well-rehearsed, excellent practice to have a practice motion. I don't think we need to do it. Yeah, you're right. We have practiced today already by doing it in minutes.
And I see Brett has dropped it in the chat for people if they want
Great.
more of the
Thank you.
detail.
All right. Moving on. The regular meetings. So following the approach that we had for the technical design group, we have 2 current meetings that we operate. We're looking to operate through the work group. We have this call here, which is the AU, which will turn into, from our next meeting, the AU Core work group main call. So that's very deliberately called the main call because we're looking at this meeting serving multiple purposes, as it does currently in the TDG. And it'll cover things like the AU Core work group governance and administration. So things about reviewing the mission and charter, interim co-chairs, decision-making practices, procedures, and oversight of the AU Core work group projects. So that's all work group business. As it was TDG business, it will be work group business. But then we'll also use these meetings for AU Core Fire IG project work. So if you're interested in the AU Core Fire IG, you'll be coming along to these meetings, and we'll also cover off the governance. So we may talk about patient summary project governance in this meeting, but it will generally be, just work group governance and the Fire IG project work. And the current meeting cadence is every fortnight on a Thursday for 1.5 hours. Then the other call we have is the HL7 AU patient summary Fire IG project call. So that one is purely focused on patient summary Fire IG project work. So that's the one we have tomorrow. And it's the same thing. It's every 2 weeks, but on a Friday for 1.5 hours. So we're looking to continue that cadence at the moment. I'd be interested to hear if anyone has any other thoughts about different ways of structuring this or different meetings we might need. But it seems to have been working very well in the TDG and suggest that we continue that.
Thanks, Michael. So that's an open question here. Would anyone like to comment on whether or not they're happy to continue, both having a fortnightly AU Core would now be called a work group call, which would also deal with AU Core Fire IG questions, along with things around governance, and maintain the fortnightly patient summary Fire IG. So at the moment, I think that's really the proposal here. Can I open that out now and get some comments from people on this call on that? Happy, not happy, suggestions? What else do we need to consider?
Silence is happy, is it?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm going to start picking people's names out if they don't volunteer. But it looks like Richard's gone off mute. Go for it, Richard. Say this.
I like the cadence. For me personally, Tuesday would be more convenient than Friday, but I realise I'm just one person in this.
Can you say Tuesday for which one? Because there's currently
Oh,
two calls.
Tuesday for the Friday one would be more convenient for me.
Oh, for patient summary. So, okay, so you're thinking for you, Tuesday is better for you for patient summary. Okay.
But I mean, yeah, that's you were asking for any sorts of comments, so
Oh
there's
no, we're absolutely happy to have all the comments about the meeting cadence, including the justification, I think, where this might build to, and we'll get to just in a second, Ricardo, to open a community vote on the dates and times. They've been present for a while, but maybe even if we keep this cadence, they do move to different days and times. So I think that's also the kind of thing we're opening is this does this totally work for like 90% or do we want to look at not at refining the current cadence for these calls? So thank you, Richard. Appreciate your comment. Ricardo?
Thanks, Danielle. Look, I have a few thoughts. I'm not intending them to trigger any changes, but I'm just going to share them anyway. So I think starting with AU patient summary, 1.5 hours, maybe we could trial something like a 1 hour meeting every 2 weeks. Again, I don't want this to change or be kind of considered for change right now, but I just think that it's probably a bit too much. The other comment or thought that I have is around the AU Core work group meeting. So it often, for us in Queensland, it often clashes with our lunchtime, or most people's lunchtime, from 12 to 12:30. And what ends up happening is, if you have a lot of meetings like I do, then as soon as you finish this one, you're immediately going to be asked to go to another one, and you just keep on going, and the whole day is just a bit of a mess. So something that I guess would be good considering is potentially moving these meetings so they don't coincide with people's lunchtime
I mean, I think it's a
as
good
much, but yeah.
question. For Queensland folks, none of the AU Core work group meetings occur in the lunchtime, but they do, I think, for some of our southern partners.
But they go until 12:30. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for some of our southern partners, it's from 12 to 1:30. So
Yeah.
for AU Core, of course, the incorporation there is also around Perth, and just how early that makes some meetings start, I think is
Yeah, that's a very good point about earlier starts does cause problems for Western Australia.
kind of what I'm hearing, and I think that's good. So I'm seeing comments in the chat, and from what I've heard from people is we think 2 meetings is still good. Right, 2 meetings for like an AU Core work group that also includes the fire IG things and the patient summary still sounds like the right bit. But then maybe let's put out a vote to confirm the day and time we want. I'm going to ask people to put up their hands in a second to check both of those things. Can I ask for people on the line to put up your hand if you're happy with having two calls at the moment going forwards? One around AU Core Work Group that includes the Fire IG business and a patient summary specific call. So could you put your hand up in Zoom if you're like happy to continue with that cadence at the moment?
I would raise my hand, but can't seem to do it on this engine.
I would as well. I will no longer be chairing after today, so I will get to put my hand. So that looks pretty overwhelmingly a yes. All right. So everyone, can you put your hand down? That looks like yeah. We're gonna let's keep going with two calls for now. Um, Now everyone's hands down. I'm gonna ask you in a second to put your hand up if you would really appreciate if we did a like a Zulip poll for what is the day and time we should be holding these calls. All right, I'm seeing more hands coming up. I'm just going to give it a bit. So maybe you're going to vote for the same, maybe you're going to vote for different. All right, looking at that, we've got about 50%. So I think that justifies, let's put in the minutes then in action to open a poll. I recommend it being Zulip because that is very much the easiest way to get community visible feedback to everybody and let it be asynchronous for the preferred date and time of the AU Core Work Group main call and the preferred date and time of the patient summary Fire IG call. Noting, of course, daylight savings after now changes. So, like in 3 days' time, that's Brisbane will meet our Sydney, Canberra friends, and we will now be on the same timeline. All right, so let's do that. Marika, your hand's still up. Is that a question, or you just didn't pop it down?
Didn't pop it down. Sorry, Danny.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so we'll take an action out of that. Michael Wilson, are you happy for us to put that action on you to put out the Zulip polls?
Yep, that's fine.
All right, awesome. Okay, let's keep going. I think that was a clear indication from the community on how to proceed.
Yep, no, that's great. Okay. Just also noting that all of our AU Fire meetings, connectathons, workshops, information sessions, ballots, everything is noted in the AU Fire calendar. That calendar is on our Confluence page, but it's also sourced from the actual Fire work group calendar. You'll see here all the meetings. We've got here the TDG main call, for example, today. Here's the Zoom link on it. We've got the patient call tomorrow. You do need to log into Confluence in order to set your local time zone. Otherwise, these won't show your local time zone. But if you log in, set your time zone, then you'll actually see the correct times. You'll also see our AE Core information session here. So having this calendar, referencing this calendar is your best place to go to see what's on happening across all spaces, not just AU Core. So you can see everything happening on this calendar. So it's a really good resource to use to see what's on. But do log in and set time zone so that you can actually get the relevant times. Now, we just talked about potentially changing the meeting cadence or meeting times. But we do have, I don't know whether maybe we actually combine this rather than do a vote on this now. We can do that as part of the Zulip poll. Or actually, we'll have to have our, Daniel, we probably can't change it in time for our next meeting, can we? We'll have a Zulip poll, which will get the results of at the next meeting, but we probably can't reschedule the next meeting.
So let's talk with people about that. Ideally, obviously, we have a meeting series. Since today's the last TDG, maybe we do a hands up thing to go. While we put this out for what should we really be doing in interim, like when is our next meeting? Maybe just our next meeting is still on this
Yeah.
same meeting pattern. And then we have the open Zulip poll that might totally change days. Does that make sense to people if we just have the next fortnightly meeting sort of on the same day, Thursday and then Friday, while we're trying to, I guess, change, do we do Tuesdays now or whatever else? Because I just, I think that might be the best way to go forwards. Does that
Yeah.
work for people? There's a thumbs up. Okay, there's two thumbs up. So that's it. That's 10% affirmative. No, 30%. Okay, we've got a few more. So let's do this one now for just what is the next one. This only counts for the next meeting, basically. And in the meantime, you'll put a Zulip poll out and we can agree on where does the meeting series go for like the next, what is it, 8 months or 6 months until daylight savings
Daylight
kicks in
savings. Yeah.
again.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, let's run this one to say our next meeting. So the next meeting is after daylight savings ends. So someone gets to keep their time, someone has to change, basically. Which one do we want? I'll hand back over to you, Michael, and then I think we have a Zoom poll to see which way we go.
Yeah. So that was it. So we're currently this meeting is 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which was actually 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time. So that's it. Like Danielle said, if you're in one of those time zones, then one of us will have to change. So the option one here is to keep the 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So if you're in one of the states that has daylight saving, it will move to an hour earlier. The option two is to move to an hour later Australian Eastern Standard Time, which would mean the same as what it currently is in daylight saving time. This is also always very confusing. I have to double check this slide like 10 times when I put it together. But then we've got some other time zones there as what it means if you're in South Australia, Northern Territory, or Western Australia for that. So I think we do have a poll for this. So if we're happy, we can do a poll on what people's preference are just for the next meeting.
Oh,
Like I said, we'll do a
urgent
Zoom poll.
update.
Sorry.
Isn't our next meeting on the 2nd of April?
Oh, is it?
Our next meeting's on the 2nd of April, which is like
And
2 days
no change.
before daylight savings
Okay.
ends.
Oh, good catch.
So I
So
think
let's,
if we just keep it going for one more fortnight,
yes.
we just keep it exactly the same. And we can vote on if that's okay for people. Just the next meeting is exactly as it has been for how they are while we're doing the Zulip poll.
Okay. So that will be option one here, which
Right?
is keep 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time for the next meeting, which will
Yes.
be which will be 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time. But essentially no change for the next meeting if we're happy with that.
Now I'm going to put up a poll. If you have questions around what you're voting on, let me know. But okay, good. No, everyone seems to be really clear. We're getting a lot of votes coming in. So what we're saying is our next meeting and only our next meeting in a fortnight will be exactly the same time as it is for you now. In the meantime, there will be a public online Zulip poll to decide the day and time for the meeting series going onwards. And yep, option one is I'm happy with you to just keep exactly the same time. Option two is, our last series, please change it. And I don't mind is, oh no, I mean, it's still, I don't mind. I don't need to qualify that. All right, I'm going to count this down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end the poll. That is really overwhelmingly. 16 for that's fine. Let's keep exactly the same time for our next fortnight, which is the 2nd of April, I think. And yeah, in the meantime, we'll have the Zulip poll. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Moving on. Mailing list, AU Core Workgroup Project mailing lists. So if you're here at this meeting, there's a fair chance you're already on the mailing list as a member of the AU Core TDG. But if you're watching the recording or you're not and you haven't signed up, if you want to participate in the AU Core Workgroup Spark projects and receive updates and invitations for Spark events and project information, then you can sign up for either the AU Core Fire IG project and or the AU Patient Summary Fire IG project. So depending where your interest is, you can sign up to both or just one or the other. If you were already signed up to the AU Core TDG, you'll automatically join the AU Core Fire IG project. So you won't actually see any difference there because we were already working on that Fire IG project. We're just transitioning from the TDG to work group. So it's not a new project. So it will be the same as normal. By joining these projects, you also join the HL7 Core Workgroup mailing list. And if at any time you want to withdraw, if you don't want to be part of these mailing lists, getting this information, you can withdraw by contacting the Sparked program via that sparked@CSIRO email address. And to sign up to the HL7 Core Workgroup mailing list, only with no projects, there is a link there for that as well. So, Brett, I don't know if you wanted to talk anything about the workgroup one there as well.
Only we that is just a sign up sheet at the moment for workgroup only. That list will come online in the near future, but it won't be very soon because we're changing our mailing system. But yeah, if you do have an interest in kind of non-project correspondence, that's the one to be only. That's the one to be on. But if you're interested in projects, you need to sign up to those. Thanks.
And yeah, so there was an email that got sent out. So if you were on an existing list, you would have got an email earlier this week, which had some instructions in there. But the short answer is if you were on the TDG, you're cutting over to the Fire IG project. You don't need to do anything unless you want to be removed. Then you can send an email to Spark@CSIRO to get removed from those lists. Danielle.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize some of the difference here between how we'd operated between TDG and workgroup. I think this is almost the biggest one. So previously, all sign-ups, including to the TDG mailing list, had happened through Sparked. What the future will look like is that for Sparked projects, people who want to be on the mailing list for the Spark projects will need to go through Spark registration. That's AU Core and Patient Summary. Possibly Patient Summary will move out of Sparked or there might be new projects, but either way, that's how you have to do it. Now, one of the big differences is that there will be a sign-up mechanism for the work group that doesn't have to go through Sparked. And that's part of what I think Brett has highlighted, that you can sign up to get work group mailing list information that doesn't go through Sparked because that's really what you're signing up to, is that mailing list rather than project specific. Would that be right, Brett?
Yeah, that's it. So, so that's probably more general in nature and not aimed at the project explicitly, or on workgroup business. Yep.
The other thing to really highlight for people is there's an agreement with HL7 Australia that if you've signed up to a project mailing list, you must also be a member. So that's automatic, of being on the responsible work group mailing list. So for the AU Patient Summary work group, Patient Summary project, you will get AU Core Work Group comms. And even the same with e-requesting. If you're on I know they've approved some recent projects even on reporting. If you sign up to the mailing list of one of those specific projects, you will be on the work group mailing list, and that's how they're going to manage that. So I just really wanted to make that clear for people because that's a bit different to how it's happened in the past. Now, what's been sent out is the opt-out, and Well, I'm sure the people online who are at this meeting are still interested because, I mean, you're sharing a Zoom with us, so, there's interest there. The way to withdraw by, ooh, we don't have a date there. What is the date, Brett, that we're asking people for opt-out?
You can opt out anytime. So, yep, that's up to you.
That's nice, but I feel like there was a date from which it goes from being the Sparked project list to being the work group list, which is new.
Yeah, I mean, technically it's the 1st of April.
Okay.
If you want to, yeah, if you want to do that, because the lists are getting prepared. Um, that work group list is probably not going to be established immediately, the work group only list. So we'll let you know when it comes online. But if you do not want to be on it, through your project involvement, let us know and we'll make sure you're not on it.
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm because I thought there was a date at which we were essentially assuming that the people who have not opted out are therefore happy for their
Yeah.
email details to move into being part of the work group mailing list. Okay. Are there any questions from people on the line about how this transition and what happens to your email details? All right. Then let's move on.
Okay. Moving to, this is my last slide for the transition. This is about links. We have a brand new AU Core Workgroup Confluence site. So we got a fresh, clean one. We moved all the content across from the TDG into this, but we now have our own site. You'll see it's been rebranded as Workgroup. All the content that was in the TDG is in here. It's just been restructured, cleaned up a bit. There is an archive section for the TDG as well. So everything that you would have been looking at before is still in here. It might just be in a slightly different place. I'll just walk you through it quickly to talk about this. I'll put it in the chat as well. So you've got the link. So if you only need one link, this is it. Bookmark this page. This will have what you need for the work group and the projects running in this work group. So the landing page that I'll put the link in the chat for, this is it here. We've got a notices section at the top, which will talk about upcoming events and the like. So if you want to get info on what's going on, so we've got our Spark testing event that the EOI is open, so that information's there. On the right over here, we've got our co-chairs. So if you're trying to work out who our co-chairs are, we've got the projects. We've got upcoming calls. So you can see here, these are the Zoom links to the upcoming calls, the meeting indexes and the like, and a bit of information to welcome you and participating. And the calendar of events is on this page as well. So again, this is all fire events, not just AU Core, but that's where you'll see the AU Core specific ones. Moving over here, we've got our mission and charter, which, as noted, we'll get you to review and we'll ratify that. But the other important part in here is the projects. So under the workgroup projects, we have our 2 projects that are currently operating in the work group. And each of those have their own page. So if you have a look at the AU Core Fire IG project, for example, talks about what the project's about. It tells you how to sign up, which is that sign up process we just talked about then. Our Zulip topic, we have an AU Core Zulip topic for chatting about all things AU Core. We've got our meeting index as well as a YouTube channel with all the recordings and everything from all of our meetings. And the meetings section also has the agenda for the upcoming meetings. We've got a link to the Fire IG, the AU Core Fire IG, the continuous integration build, and the GitHub for it. These are the mailing lists we were talking about. So there's an AU Core list, where we send out the information to all members of the project. And then we have another one here, which is for the co-chairs and facilitators of the project. Also got things for our Inferno test kit for testing AU Core implementations and the test data repository as well. So by going to the Confluence, if you've got that parent Confluence link, you can get links to everything else you're going to need either from there or the project. You'll notice we've also got the patient summary project here, which is a similar structure as well, with all the links that you need for the patient summary project, and including the Zulip chat for that, meeting index, the FireIG, mailing lists, which are different mailing lists because they're project mailing lists, the Inferno test kit, test data, and issues. And under each of these projects, we have the things like our ballot reconciliation, discussions, testing, parking lots, any other project-specific information. For our meetings, they're all in here now together for the work group meetings. If you have a look at 2026, for example, you'll see we've got core meetings, patient summary meetings, TDG meetings, and the like. Go through each of them. There are recordings there and the like as well as the connection details on the right. So this is our new page, all for us. Everything you're going to need to know to interact with the AU Core work group and the projects is on this site.
Thanks,
I think
Michael.
that's
I'm
about all
going
I
to
had.
move on and not
Yep.
open it up to community because we need to move on. And also, I think that this will be something that we can work through in subsequent meetings.
Great.
So I'm going to move on. Brett, if you want to share your screen, Brett's going to do a report back of the Connectathon. Can I ask you to be 7 minutes or less, please?
Do you mind doing the slides? I think there's just 2 or 3 slides.
Michael, could you be slide operator?
Thanks,
Maybe even
Mike.
5 minutes. Let's see what we do, and then we can get to
All
the
right,
change
cool.
request.
I'll just move it if you're too slow.
Yeah, that's it. That's great. Yeah, so this is just reporting back on the Connectathon activities. So just the AU Core track. So we did our normal connecting, getting people involved and checking things out. We did have a target to look at healthcare service maturity. That was one of the hangovers at FMM1, looking to go to FMM2. So in summary, healthcare service got tested out, so we did get all the testing done we needed to cover the elements up to look at going to FMM2 for that profile. We had 6 AU Core servers that were specifically there doing AU Core business, and we had a lot of clients connecting to those for various reasons. We had supporting stuff with the updates to the Inferno testing framework and the reference server content to support AU Core R2. So that was all there and available, and people were using that. We had a lot of EMR servers. We had the HCA provider directory implementing aspects of AU Core as well available. Yeah, a lot of AU Core usage in various ways. There were a number of smart apps that were using AU Core data as part of their business and getting information. And yep, so here's the lovely diagram. So there's a lot of links here now, and every time we seem to have more links. The green ones are for AU Core. So yep, you can see there was lots of activity. That's all I'll say about that. But yeah, it was an excellent event, and we had a lot of good participation. Just to note too, we did have some breakouts run that were kind of adjacent to AU Core. We did do our AU Core 101, so that was a good session. We had a few people getting started. Michael Lawley took some time to introduce the MELD framework, which is good if you don't have a server to play with. That actually got used by some of the participants later as part of their testing work, so that was a good effort. Richard took us through some work around AU-based identifier type terminology issues and trying to get up some data type of identifiers. That will flow through into AU Core at some point once that's gone through the file work group. Yeah, just keep an eye out for that. But there was some good discussion in that. And we did our FireIG hot topics. There's a few extra things coming in IG Publisher of note around package resolution and cross-version referencing. which are useful features we need to know about. And we are told R6 is still in the pipe. So that is indicated maybe next year. Big question mark. Danielle, did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, sure. So,
Cool.
what we're going to do as Sparked, and I think we even sent out the email already, is there's a bit of a testing gap between March and the next HL7 AU Connectathon in September. And usually what happens in that gap is we do all the development work for Core, all of maybe even the R2 for e-requesting, and I know provided directory and smart forms are working through things. So what we're happy to offer is if there's any interest in doing a testing event somewhere in June or July, and we do mean somewhere, we've put up an EOI. So we're asking people in the community to say when and where. So what dates, what cities? Is this Adelaide? Is this Brisbane? Is this Sydney? What would be useful for you? And in this particular case, we're really looking to kind of, I think, up the maturity and collaborate across some connected scenarios. So not just AU Core staying in AU Core track, patient summary in patient summary track, but look to get some early engagement around some of the connecting scenarios between how do you actually use provider directory to feed into the use cases around which you would then do e-requesting and patient summary. So if that's of interest to you, and it's a 1 day event, and you would be happy to be available and kind of share in that with the rest of the community, let us know what would suit you. That's all it is. It's not an official registration. It's just what dates, what locations would work for you. Ricardo.
Thanks, Danielle. Sorry, just unmuting and
Mm.
putting the video back on. Just a quick one for you. So we've been, and this is within the agency, we've been talking about potentially also bringing in our first very, very rough event.
Is Ricardo on mute for everyone else?
Oh, I thought it was me. I thought my connection had
I
dropped.
thought it was
It's
me
frozen.
too.
Oh,
No, me too.
No, he's gone. I
Ricardo,
can't
we
hear
Back.
him.
just lost you
He's
for the
back.
last
Yeah.
5 minutes. Can
Okay.
you go
Can you
again?
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I've been having some internet issues. So what I was saying is, we've been
Oh
playing
no.
around with the idea that it wouldn't. We would like to bring the very first draft of the My Health Record on Fire implementation guide to this event. So I can't confirm that right now, but would it be okay if at some stage in the coming weeks we can bring that in?
Absolutely. Would love it. I mean, really, from a sparked perspective, what we're just really trying to gauge from the industry is are you interested in this? And in what ways, and in this case, you count as like system operators, is this useful for us to actually get together and try to do some really interesting testing and further things? Whether that's even doing some experimental scenarios around e-requesting into booking or, what's of interest. So 100% that's on the table. Yeah, if you're interested, you want to be involved, tell us when and where, and Sparked will commit to finding a venue and making some time available. And it sounds like the agency will do some work to make sure that we can have things available to go through and test that.
Thank you.
Have you done the EOI, Ricardo?
But we've done the OI, so that's all done. And we've added, as you can see, we have the HCA provider directory already in the list. But I think that we might have the My Health Record on Fire, the first draft IG, available, by the time we have this event. So I'm thinking that we might just bring that one into this as well. And it will also be a good opportunity because we're looking at what will happen with AU Core composition and bundle. So it might also be a good
Yes.
opportunity, I guess, for us to converge on that one too.
I think that sounds like a fantastic idea. Thanks, Ricardo. All right, let's move on. Now, Michael, if you're happy to keep sharing screens. Do are you happy for Michael to keep sharing, or would you prefer to share
Yeah,
yours?
yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Right.
Michael can keep sharing. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll just look at AU Core HealthcareService FMM level today. And just quickly, I know we've been through this before. Just quickly, the FMM levels define maturity levels for fire artifacts, and that's based on the level of review and testing and implementation. So, if you could go to the next screen, Michael. So we start, yeah, it's fine. With draft 0 is the initial level, the artifact's been published in the spec, and then it goes through to AFMM1, which basically means it's considered complete by the working group. So the artifact doesn't produce any errors and warnings that are not accepted by the responsible work group. And then, next slide, please. Yes. So,
that one or this one? That one or
yeah,
the next one?
that one's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, AFMM2 actually requires stronger evidence, testing and implementation evidence. So for an artifact to go to FMM2, it must have achieved FMM1 and also demonstrate some testing activities done by at least 3 independently developed systems. And the testing should cover most of the artifact scope. It's actually at least 80% of the core elements, and the results must be reported to and accepted by the fire work group. Next screen, please. Thank you. So this slide actually shows the evidence that AU Core HealthcareService profile meets the AFMM2 criteria. It's already at AFMM1. The testing's been conducted with 7 independently developed systems during various AU Core testing activities, including the latest Sydney Connectathon. The profile has 4 must support elements. And all 4 were tested by at least 3 independent systems. Actually, all 7 systems tested all these must support and mandatory elements, which represents 100% coverage. So all the detailed results of testing and participating systems are documented in Confluence, as always. So based on this evidence, I'd like to ask this group to endorse AFMM2 for AU Core HealthcareService. But before I make a motion, are there any questions or comments about what's been proposed here?
Thanks, Jushi. So that's opening that up to the people on the call. If anyone has any comments or questions. I'm not seeing or hearing any. So, Dushi, I think you are able to go ahead and motion.
Yes, I'd like to motion that AU Core HealthcareService be approved as AFMM2.
Thank you, Dushi. Who would be happy to second that?
Happy to second.
Thanks, Stephen. Any other comments or questions while I move to the electronic vote? All right, I'm just launching that now. So you should see affirmative, negative, or abstain based on what Jushi's presented. Are you happy to endorse AFMM2? Criteria have been met. Affirmative, negative, or abstain? And put in the chat. Thanks, Steve. I can see that one. And if you've dialed in, say your name and affirmative, negative, or abstain. Oh, this one's a bit slow. We've only had 60% of people vote, so we're definitely waiting on some other people. All right, that's better. We've now got over 90. So I'm going to count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I will end that poll. I will share the results. So with what is in the chat, we have 13 affirmative, 0 negative, 5 abstain. The motion carries. We are happy to approve that AU Core HealthcareService is understood to be AFMM2. Thanks very much, Dushi.
Thank you.
So let's just continue on and make Michael keep sharing the screen. So just reminding people, tomorrow is about endpoint. If that's something you're interested in, including because you have no idea what it is, come along. Or it will be recorded. The information session will be on YouTube. So you can look at that later. But if you have any specific questions you want to ask people, tomorrow is the live opportunity to engage with, I guess, the experts around endpoint and where it's going. After that, we've got our next meeting on the 2nd of April. And from what Ricardo has presented, that's where we're going to see our first opportunity of what is this AU Core endpoint proposal that is being presented from the agency that we want to consider. So that's what's going to come in there. And then followed by that will be what we think would be the last voting opportunity around that on the 16th of April. And we'll keep going on some of these proposals. I know that there'll be more information sessions coming in. I'm just waiting to hear from the individuals who are interested in AU Core composition, but they're going to be scheduled shortly, like AU Core composition, AU Core document reference, bundle, medication dispense. You'll start to see those information sessions and the proposals come through. So we're about to get a bit heavy in terms of making decisions, which is excellent. That's the point of R3. Next slide, please. So our next call, which does not include endpoint, and we need to update that. I don't know if I think there will be a report back on ways of working. I assume by that time we will have completed the Zulip poll on what are the actual dates and times that we will continue to meet on. I would like to bring through an update on address, which we did a lot of good work on at the face-to-face on the 10th of April. But I also believe, Ricardo, that we will be presenting the initial endpoint proposal here. Can I just confirm that's correct?
That's the plan, yeah.
Okay, I'll update that for when we send that out. Can I ask, are there any other topics that people would like to add to the agenda? All right, not here. Yeah, so go ahead.
Sorry, I won't be there, but there'll be somebody else from the agency who'd like to talk about relaxing the constraint on organisation identifier type, which says that an identifier of type NOI has to be a HIPPO or a PAIO.
All right, that sounds good. Richard, if you could make sure if you send through to the AU Core, I guess, work group co-chairs, an update on the direction from the identifier type work to add on to the agenda, then yep, they will include that.
Okay, which was that email address again of our
I
various?
will put it in the chat. So if you want to get in touch with the co-chairs, and I'm just going to the chat now, what you do is you do this one. aucore at hl7.com.au. The one that I email out to when I send out meeting invites is subtly different. Perhaps it's too subtle. And just at Brett as the HL7 AU technical person. Maybe we think about the listservs going forwards.
Sure.
But yeah,
Let's
Richard,
work
if you
it.
email that, that'll go to the co-chairs.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And I guess, and for anyone else on the line, if you want to email the co-chairs to put something on the agenda or ask a question or so forth, you can email what I just popped into the chat, and that will, yeah, go to the co-chair mailing list. So I'd like to bring this meeting to a close. Are there any other comments or questions that people would like to raise? All right, thanks very much, everybody. We go to the next slide. I want to thank you all for working as part of a technical design group and welcome to the work group. Congrats to all of us for graduating. We're moving beyond a technical design group now to a work group. We have basically completed AU Core R2 and the Inferno and all testing, and we've just finished the AFMM 2 of the last AU Core R2 artifact. So we have finished. We are into a brave new world of maturity. So thank you, everybody. You've done amazing work, and I look forward to seeing you in the next call where I shall be a participant and not a chair of a meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Danielle.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, Danielle.
Right. Oh, hang on. Yeah, thank you.